Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praises, honor, and glory to the Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son, Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham Harakhakwadash. Double honor is being for the apostles and elders at Great Millstone who rule well and have taught us this 100% truth. Much peace and blessings be unto you, hopeful. Elect out the Bishnat, this word without truth and sincerity to Ayuachim. I do say Shalom. I'm the Achra. I'm coming in with a quick lesson. Going into the book of 2nd Ezra, the 9th chapter, verse 1, which doth read, He answered me then, and that he is Uriel, the angel, and said, Measure thou the time diligently in itself, which, for that term measure, in the Google definition, it is a means to determine the size, amount, or degree of something by comparing it to a standard unit. And what are we measuring? The end of the world, this day and this age, this period, this state that we're in, the time of the Gentiles, the heathen rulership. And all in all, most of recorded history, we've been subjugated, right? We've been held captive, right? That's for most of recorded history. What's it called? That's not to say, we didn't have our sovereignty here and there, like under the 40 years of peace with King Solomon, which was an incarnation of Yahweh Shai. By all means we did. And, it was a peaceful time. And really, that was a precursor to the kingdom. And as it is written, the thing that hath been is that which shall be done, right? And there is no more thing under the sun. So a precursor, a forerunner, an introduction, as the apostles put it, to the kingdom of heaven, which is coming soon. And it is then no wonder as to why the apostles made the mention, when shall you restore the kingdom again? Right? And because, we haven't had a kingdom in goddamn ages, bro. We haven't had a kingdom in centuries and millennia. Right? And we're still waiting on it. The time of the Gentiles is, you can read about that in Daniel the 7th chapter, for example. Daniel the 2nd chapter. Right? You have all these kingdoms, on the earth right now. And the last mention would be the kingdom of Israel, and that hasn't happened yet. Else everything will be all fine and mother flipping dandy. Everything will be fine and dandy, but there ain't no fine and dandy in us. Hey, because this is not our rest, right? Depart ye, for this is not your rest. That was Micah 2:10, right? Anyways, what was it? Bear with me. Yeah, Acts the 1st chapter, verse 6. One day, therefore, were come together, they asked of them, saying, Lord, unto Yahweh Shai, our Lord and Savior, wilt thou at this time restore again the kingdom to Israel? Again, because again, we did have it, but it was very short-lived. We've been without a kingdom for goddamn ages. I mean, sure, what's it called? Judah still retain some jurisdiction, right? It's still retain some autonomy. Yeah, being a freaking province, to other places, man. Right? I mean, what's it called? Jake had to get the approval of Cyrus. Darius, man. Yeah, they also got it from Artaxerxes right? Until you have them freaking, goddamn heathen, tell them, oh my gosh, these Israelites are building up a temple, these guys are not to be rebellious, whatnot, they go against human arbitrary customs, therefore, don't let them build a temple, blah, blah, right? And then we weren't allowed to build a temple until Darius was on the scene. Darius the First, if I'm saying, Darius the First, because you also have Darius the Mede, but what's it called? We're talking about Darius the First here. And then that's when Darius was all like, oh, yeah, you build it, build the second temple, which they get toppled in 70 AD. What's it called? But yeah, it's gonna come soon because I'm gonna pull out the book of Daniel real quick. The 7th chapter. Verse 27, and I doth read, in the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose king, saints of the Most High. Now, Most High is a constant title you read about throughout the scriptures, and there's like about 130 mentions of the Most High, right? Throughout the Old Testament, New Testament, and Apocrypha. That's one of the titles of the Most High. Reason to say the saints, sanctified, who have been sanctified, the nation of Israel, they've been set apart. As a matter of fact, pursuant to Deuteronomy, the 7th chapter, verse 6, they are known as a people above all nations. So therefore, is that's an example of superiority. I digress. Whose kingdom is an everlasting, baby, everlasting kingdom, and all the dominion shall serve and obey him. Hitherto is the end of the matter, right? Hitherto is the end of the matter. So, there ain't no other kingdoms after that, right? You look into that word everlasting. It's an adjective meaning continuing forever or lasting for an indefinitely long period of time. Okay. Indefinitely means for an unspecified time, forever, for an unlimited or unspecified period of time. So, unlimited for sure. Infinite, right? It's for infinity. The kingdom shall be infinity years long. The kingdom of Israel, the kingdom of Yasharallah, shall be infinity years long. Right? Because there is no end to it, baby. Right? Going back to Daniel, the 2nd chapter, you hear about what's it called? The various metals in that statue, which all those represent different kingdoms. And what happened? What's it called? It reads in verse 44, in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom, right? Yahweh of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom never be destroyed. And that's the way it goes. When it comes to an end of a kingdom, you're plucking it up by its roots, by its foundations, its infrastructure, its institutes, systems, right? Ecclesiastes 3:1, verse 2. A time to be born. Actually, verse 1. To everything there's a season and time to every purpose under the heaven. I remember the other apostle, I don't know what's going to this. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. And I'm using this because, as he broke it down, it's twofold for literally gardening. Gardening is beautiful, by the way. But also for the establishment and the dissolution of kingdoms. It doesn't matter their empires. Whatever the name of the polity is nonetheless referred to as a kingdom in the scriptures. Right? So, the plucking up of kingdoms, which if you go into the book of Sirach, aka the book of Ecclesiastes, is the 10th chapter, it does go into the same thing, right? The verse 14, the Lord hath cast on the thrones of the proud princes, and now that yells Esau Edom to the T, because first of all, he is proud. The pride of thine heart deceiveth thee, as it is written in the book of Obadiah, verse 3. And he is a prince. He has status. He has given power. Therefore, he is a prince right now. He is a proud prince. So the Lord had cast down the thrones of the proud princes. That's a future prophecy, and it didn't happen yet. And set up the meek in their stead, which we know that meek to refer to the Israelites, and meek in their stead. Meaning what's it called, in their position. And time after Job 9:24, it reads, the earth is given to the hand of the wicked, which we know wicked is a title of Esau Edom, because he is known as the border of wickedness, pursuant to the book of Malachi, the 1st chapter, verse 4. So therefore, if he's given the whole earth, well, what about us? When Esau gets dethroned and we be established, set up, we shall also inherit the earth. The earth shall be in our hands. And that's in the book of Matthew, the 5th chapter, verse 5, which doth read, actually starting at verse 3, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. True that. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. And that's a point blank statement. It's not some metaphorical BS. It's not saying, oh yeah, it's referring to any and all believers that believe in Jesus Christ. That's not what it's talking about, son. It's not what it's talking about. The meek are the Israelites who stand by Yahweh, by Yahweh Shai. Right? confessing the names, right? The true names, which are in Hebrew, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, not some God in Jesus Christ. First of all, God's an English title. That's a freaking title, son. That's a title. As a matter of fact, Psalms 82:6 clarifies that the nation of Israel are God's, and the Son of the Lord, the only begotten Son, our Lord and Savior Yahweh Shai, he even clarified in, New Testament, that it is written in your law that ye are God's. Right? So how about that? And Yahweh Shai is a true name of the Son, right? He will deliver, he will save. Who will he save? His elect. Not some, random lunatic down the street, that look, a goddamn Edomite in spirit. Right now, obviously, we did teach confusion of faces. So you got an Edomite looking person, but he's calling upon the names of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. That was definitely a brother. Right? And even if they don't have the truth, there's a possibility, they still be Jake, because, Jake is the most spiritual people on earth. Right? And I remember the other apostles were always going to that. And they even emphasized how, there'd be Amalekite-looking people, which is Amalek is the grandson of Esau, Edom. And, the banking families are comprised of, Amalek. And the Amalekites are the ones that pretend to be, they're the ones that pretend to be us. But, the apostles were pointing to how there are Amalekites. There are Amalekites that ultimately are Jake, Because, if you've been scattered abroad, which is pretty insane. Not insane as in, it's bull, and it's not bull, it's not fake. For the things that are written are faithful and true. That's written in the book of 2nd. This is the 15th chapter. I presume it was verse 2. Right, so, but when I say insane, I mean it as an astonishing, puzzling. It is great. It is crazy, but it is true. Anyways, continuing on. Where was I? Right, Daniel, the 2nd chapter. No. I was in the book of Ecclesiasticus. Verse 15. Yeah, the Lord hath plucked up the roots of proud nations and planted the lowly in their stead, which, is also us. The Lord hath overthrew countries of the heathen and destroyed them to the foundations of the earth. Now, for all that talk that the Lord only does good and do something deemed evil, it's not of him. Well, first of all, it is written, the Lord creates evil and good. The Lord does all these things. I presume that was the book of Isaiah, the 45th chapter, verse 7. Right? And the idea that the Lord overthrows countries of the heathen and destroys them to the foundations of the earth, that's a terrible thing to the side of the people. You tell them now, all of a sudden they talk about, you're a devil. That's fake. That's not true. That's your interpretation. They get all jittery and whatnot. But that goes to show you ignorance of the scriptures. They don't really read. They just rep it. They rep the Bible. They don't even know what was written in there. And that's why when you go on Quora or on Reddit and you actually hear accounts of people who have actually read the scriptures, but they're not in the truth, or they're just heathen, they often, there's a constant, idea that comes out of it, and that's that they feel, sick. I recall one guy was putting out his account that he felt sick to his stomach reading the things that were written therein. Because he didn't hear about that in his church. He only heard about that when he actually read the scriptures. He actually looked therein. And that's the thing. The scriptures are pretty, scary. It talks about cannibalism, for crying out loud. Right, but what's it called? Going back to Daniel, the 2nd chapter. Verse 44, right? In the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, not other people, right? But it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Right? Forever and ever. That is what's it called, the kingdom of Israel, and it hasn't happened yet, right? Because there's still wars going on, right? You got what's it called? I think it's ingrained to the United Nations, you know, where then they gotta have like their, I forget what they call it, like a peace war zone and whatnot. You know, they go in between these war zones and try to get the peace and whatnot. That's an example of, you know, there still being wars, because why the hell would you have to do that? You know, hey, we're talking about famine on this side, right? Sedition, protest riots. We're talking about civil war, a second one, race wars, right? All this, MOTB, that hasn't happened yet, right? Are you saying the MOTB would take place in the kingdom of heaven? It's like, yeah, the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of Israel? No, right? What's it called? Those are two. Those are isolated events, right? They're distinct. They don't intertwine. They don't overlap, right? They are distinct. MLTV is happening on this side because, hey, the devil's still in control here. The devil being Esau, Edom, right? Our adversary. Hey, for he knoweth they have but a short time as it is written. You know, so he wants to brandish all these people. You know, with the charagma, making one of theirs. You know, he already has a social security on us, right? That birth certificate. But now you want, what's it called, brandish us with a freaking, you know, the little thingamabop in your foreheads or your right hand. Now you got Neuralink on the scene, and it's been out for a while. I think they're on their 12th test subject. I forget. You know, they had, what's it called, test subjects, and you could watch the, like, short documentaries on YouTube about it, and it's freaking insane. You had one of the, I think it was the first guy. He was able to move the cursor, you would say telepathically, but really it's not. You know, he just moves it with his eyes, or no, it was with his mind basically, because, you know, the chip is in his, you know, brain. Hey, but that's an example. Esau wants to be like the Most High. Hey, but as one of the Akim pointed out, only the Most High can make you into a true God. Right, so, and one of the other Akim was making a lesson how we're going to be many Most Highs in the kingdom, right? Many Most Highs, many Yahushais in the kingdom, right? So only the Lord Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai can make you into a true God, and that's reserved to the Israelites. So we finna be little many Most Highs. And even then, we're not finna be proud like Esau is, right? You know, what's it called? Proud of your heart, deceiving you, thinking that you're him, and you're really not. You know? And that's the thing. Esau may try and create, but his artificial crap cannot compare to, you know, the Lord's power. I mean, he here it is. He comes out with artificial, you know, human-like androids. He's cloned animals. Right, like Daisy the sheep or the lamb. He created cells that replicate and eat. You know, so on and so forth. And there's technology that we don't even know. You know, 50 years beyond what was out. What's it called? Out on the market. I mean, we got flying cars. You know, we got flying cars. And they've been talking about how, you know, they won't be out commercialized till like 2029. You know, some of the companies that specialize in developing flying cars. You know, so you know, those are examples of you know, wonders, right? People really standing out at that. I'm gonna go back though. Right, so what precept was I on? Right. Second, this was the 9th chapter. Verse 1. And he answered me then and said, measure thou time diligently in itself, and when thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before. We're going to the prophecies, you know, so we look on the news, you know, and we associate certain things that are popping off with prophecy, right? Because, hey, they fit perfectly. Okay. What's it called? Then shalt thou understand. Yeah, what's it called? First of all, I want to jump back to the 6th chapter, verse 7. Then answered I and said, what shall be the parting asunder of the times? Or when shall be the end of the first and the beginning of it that followeth? And actually, that was my timer. I'll be right back. Alright, continuing on. Or when shall be the end of the first and the beginning of it that followeth? And he said to me, from Abraham and Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him. Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau, for Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. Right, and in recorded history, the earliest mention of a polity, right, the kingdom would be in Nimrod. In Esau's taught history, first empire would be the Akkadian Empire under Sargon the First, if I'm not mistaken. Which I'm mistaken. I don't want to put words, but I think I recall one of the I can go into how that's the same individual. Excuse me, Salakia. Right, and at the end of this age, Esau would be in power. Right, that fourth beast, the ancient Roman Empire, but this is the revived Roman Empire, the modern Roman Empire, because America follows in its footsteps. As a matter of fact, you go on Google and search up what country is close to ancient Rome, and it's going to mention America. Right. Bear with me. Yeah, that's not helpful. The only thing it's showing me is geographical countries that are closer to it, that are geographically close to it. But now I'm talking about which is closest. All right. I can't find it. Well, I recall searching this up, and it did mention America, systemically speaking. Okay. Here's an example. No, that's not helpful. All right. Okay, doesn't show. Is America systemically similar to Rome? And, then again, you got American bald eagle, that's an example too. Esau lifts himself up like an eagle, right? And you got the ancient Rome, they were all about eagles as well. Anyways, the American system shares fundamental political, cultural, military similarities with ancient Rome, though they operate in very different economic and technological contexts, of course. And that's one thing about it, it's a parallel, but nonetheless, it's still a repetition of history. Same spirit, right? That same spirit. While America's founders explicitly modeled the U.S. government on the Roman Republic, modern critics often debate whether the U.S. faces similar risks of systemic decline. Right? Which even then, under, Augustus, throughout most of his reign, people assumed that they were still during a republic phase, but that was done away because Augustus had power, and then nearing his death, and then post-mortem, people understood there was no republic anymore; it was an empire. What's they call it? So it was a subtle transition. And that goes to show you, U.S. government they copy, Rome, regardless of whatever phase it's in, which it did have a kingdom, republic, and an empire. Okay. Political and governmental structure, separation of powers, checks and balances, and factionalism. For the first one, separation of powers. The Roman Republic's structure of consuls, the Senate, and public assemblies have heavily influenced the three-branch American system. For the checks and balances, it says both systems use tools like term limits, vetoes, and divided legislative bodies to prevent any single person or faction from gaining absolute control. Number 3, factionalism. Roman political life was divided into elite faction, the Optimates, and populist movements, populares, which closely mirror modern conservative and liberal alignments. Yeah, what's it called? Isn't that a thing in America? Populism. Populism definition. A political approach that pits the pure people against the corrupt elite. It champions ordinary citizens who feel their voices are ignored by established institutions and usually transcend traditional left-right politics to offer simple, direct solutions to complex problems. Okay. Populism is a major dominating force in contemporary American politics, functioning as a core strategy across both major political parties. Rather than a single unified ideology, it is an anti-establishment approach that pits the interests of ordinary. Yeah, I already get that point. Right, so, hey, you see some things never change. Right, this is basically a reincarnation of ancient Roman Empire. Okay. Geopolitical and cultural parallels. Global dominance, multiculturalism, and citizenship, as well as institutional vulnerabilities. For that first bullet, global dominance, both the U.S. and Roman Empire represent the preeminent global economic and cultural hegemons of their respective eras. And yeah, what's it called? Hegemon meaning supreme leader. Well, what's an example of this? What's the title of a supreme leader for country-wise? A superpower. And America is the number one global superpower on the earth right now. And back in the day, Rome was a superpower of its time, of the known world at the time. So yeah, they represent the preeminent. Preeminent means greatest, surpassing all others, very distinguished in some way. And one thing to know about America, which is also known as Babylon, Nineveh, Egypt, Sodom, right? Also Edom, it's not Edom. Who is this that cometh from Edom, wasn't it? Is that how it went? Isaiah, this is the 3rd chapter. Who is this that cometh from Edom, right? With the economics from Basra. So all those references, they all allude to a place, and that be America. Because America follows after all its ways. First and foremost Rome, but also after the ways of what's they call previous kingdoms. And that's what Rome did, ancient Rome did. They what's they called, absorbed a lot of military tactics, things like that from ancient kingdoms. Before it. I mean, also Sodom, obviously, right? Perverted. People think perversion means, a guy looking at girls. But no, the true definition of perversion is, what's it called, mistaken violation of the law. Just a fact check real quick. Okay. Turn from right to wrong. It refers to anything that's been distorted, corrupted, or twisted away from its true, righteous, original purpose. Yep, and that's this place. This place is perverted. It is Sodom for its perverseness. And things have been distorted, corrupted, or twisted away from its, true, righteous, original purpose. Right? Isaiah 24 comes to mind real quick. That was in verse 5. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. Right? And there are a lot of examples, man. Right? Feminism spirit. Right, which has been a thing going back to the garden, if I recall. But what's it called? It's more emphasized on this side. What's it called? And one thing, what's it called? These feminists use is crappy male leaders. But the thing is, the heathen being in power, they're all crappy. They really, so they really bring a bad image to patriarchy. It's no wonder as to why everybody is all anti it now, and everything is deemed toxic and whatnot. And that's why you really need the Israelite men in power to be able to see that patriarchy is a righteous establishment, but it has to be done under one that is profitable, and those be the just men, right? Starting off with Yahweh Shai Mashiach, our Lord and Savior. Right, another example, people really get finicky about this. For example, one thing that comes to mind, that child marriage, which, what's it called? People hate on GMS because of that. But that's the thing. Throughout history, it's been, a reoccurring thing. It's been a, proper thing. You know, it keeps a woman from, whoring off, whoring, right? And it wasn't until like about the 1960s when, things started getting more and more locked in on this side, where now it's deemed wicked, but really it's not. All right, else, you're really going against, the scriptures here. Like the prophets. Hey, you're really going against the prophets at that point too, because that's an orderly thing. Child marriage. What's it called? You're setting the woman off right. Right. We're talking about stability here, and that was really a big thing. What's it called? The man would be established first, and then they would be able to what's it called? What's that one word? Afford and care for the woman. Yet on this side, and what's it called? Teens, what's it called? They get it on, and next thing you know, they end up freaking homeless. I'm a freaking example to that. What's it called? I'm a son. I'm a son. I'm an offspring. What's it called to that? My parents, freaking screwed it up. Right, being teens and not established. We was literally homeless. But what's it called? In the kingdom, all that's deemed wicked, will be reverted back, and that also reminds me of Isaiah the 5th chapter, if I'm mistaken. Wherein they call righteous wicked and wicked righteous, right? Yeah, because here it is. Vaping is all smoking is glorified and whatnot. Harlotry is glorified. Right, the second you talk about what's it called, for example, child marriage or what's it called, dietary laws, for example, all of a sudden you're doing too much. Motherfucker, you doing too much. Isaiah 5:21, to them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Right, woe unto them that are wise in their own eyes, and prudent in their own sight. Yeah, motherfuckers, they get all wise in their own eyes, leaning into their own understanding. What's it called? They think that because they've been around the earth for a bit, they supposedly know the secrets of the universe, and all they've done is really just freaking look at TikTok, doom scroll on TikTok and on YouTube Shorts. Well, what's it called? Taking LSD and whatnot, talking to some random folk and then concluding that they know the secrets. Motherfucker, you don't know jack shite, bro. Or you're not bro. You're not my bro, right? That's a gross thing. So I repent from ever calling you a bro. Unless you're one of the Akim. Hey, because can two walk together, let's get be agreed? Hell nah. So you goddamn two-third mofo, you ain't my bro, you a freaking, you a goddamn foe. A foe, F-O-E, enemy. Right, what's it called? So yeah, TLDR 20, verse 20 is going into, they call good, bad, bad, good. So yeah, this place is definitely perverse. It's freaking wicked, dude. Okay, I'm gonna go back though. I forget. I'm gonna go back to 2nd Ezra, the 9th chapter. Verse 1. They have measured the time of the Julian itself, and 1,000 is part of the science past, which I have told thee before. Then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. Highest, referring to the Most High, Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai. And one thing that's happening is that he's making himself known, because there's a world that's forgotten him. This is a secular world. Secular meaning, what's it called? Extra-biblical, set apart from the scriptures. Secular definition in the Google refers to attitudes, activities, or entities that have no religious or spiritual basis. They are worldly or temporal rather than sacred. Right, which we're not supposed to be secular. First John from the 2nd chapter, verse 15, it clearly clarifies, living out the world, know the things that are therein. And even then, not other religions and not other so-called spiritual bases. Rather, what's it called? The truth. That's the how I may mention, what's it called? I am the way and the truth and the life. What's it called? So that's secular, right? That's what it means. Outside the scriptures. So being in this secular world, people, they don't believe in Most High. They don't believe in a God. They're the atheist, right? They have what's it called, different philosophies they would, comfort themselves with. But the Most High, Yahweh, who is the true living God, has been making himself known, in the secular world. I mean, one thing the other Apostle Ronald made the mention is that the Lord is currently glorifying his name, right? Glorifying his name from east to west, throughout the four corners, and that's through the gospel being spread throughout the four corners by way of the internet, right? It was really, truly made for our sake. I'll pull out the precept real quick. Okay, this is the book of Matthew, the 24th chapter, verse 14. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. And then shall the end come. So that's an example as to, going back to verse 9, it's like chapter 9, verse 1 of 2nd Ezra. When thou seest the signs past, measure that time diligently in itself. How do we know what the end of this thing? What's it called? Matthew 24 and 14 happened. A perfect indicator that shows that we're at the end of this biatch. And this gospel of the kingdom, gospel meaning good tidings. Unto whom? The Israelites, the scattered abroad. And it's no wonder as to why the Epistle of James, chronologically and historically, is, the first book of the New Testament. It was the first written book of the New Testament. Right now, the first book in the New Testament is Matthew, but the first book written that's in the New Testament was the Epistle of James. And in chapter 1, verse 1, it reads, James, an apostle, Yahweh Shai, unto the 12 tribes scattered abroad, because they still been a thing. The idea that they've been the northern kingdom's done away with is bullcrap, because here it is, second Ezra, the 13th chapter perfectly clarifies what happened to the Israelites in the northern kingdom. After 2 Kings 17, we read about the exiles. I digress. I want to pull out the book of Psalms, the precept, which goes back to, precept that the kingdom mind with Matthew, the 24th chapter. It's in the Psalms. Biblical shepherd with me. And it's going to the internet. The apostles call it the internet, the internet chapter, or if I'm mistaken, something along those lines. Okay. This is the book of Psalms, the 19th chapter, verse 1. To the chief musician, a psalm of David. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. There is no speech, no language where their voice is not heard. The line is gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. And them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun. Right, which is twofold. One of the definitions that was talking about what's it called, the internet. And biblical shepherd with me. Okay. Yeah, so internet, ultimately, around 99% of the world's internet is actually delivered through the vast network of physical, high-speed fiber optic cables laid on the ocean floors and buried on the ground. But you also got satellites, which account for that. You got what's it called, what's it, SpaceX? Yeah, isn't it SpaceX is, Starlink, not SpaceX, Starlink, internet, Starlink satellites, they give out internet, and that's all brought to you by Elon Musk, right? Starlink is a wholly owned satellite internet subsidiary of the American aerospace manufacturer SpaceX, utilizing a mega constellation of thousands of satellites in low Earth orbit (LEO). Starlink provides high-speed, low-latency broadband to over 3 million active customers across roughly 150 countries, functioning as a primary recurring revenue engine for SpaceX's long-term operations. And as a matter of fact, I've seen what's it called, the mega constellation twice. at different parts. One time in Southern California and one time in Northern California up in the Klamath Mountains. Right? The one time it was in Southern California was outside my old home. One morning I was going to the gym. It was like 4 a.m. And my brother's in the car waiting for me. And now I'm about to head out, locking the door. I look over and I see, Mega Constellation here. I was, thinking that was the Chariots. I was like, oh my God, the Marakabium. And then I come to find out that was what's it called? Mega Constellation. I got all depressed. And the way I found that out was I searched it up and I found out that I went onto the website, the spelling website, and I found out that it happened to pass right above me on the map. So I was like, oh, goddamn. And one of the Yakim actually fought for that too. Right? Some of the brothers actually fought for that. But that's a Mega Constellation. That's not the Marakabium. But those are examples of thousands of satellites that provide an internet. Thus making Psalms 19 legit and a fulfillment of Scripture. So that's, what the apostles called the internet chapter. Or internet verse, I forget. I digress, however. Second Ezra, the 9th chapter. Verse 2. Then shalt thou understand that is the very same time when the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. Right? What's it called? One precept that comes to mind is, I said glorify the name. And that's what the apostles were going into. Well, the precept that comes to mind is John the 12th chapter, verse 28. It reads, Father, glorify thy name. Then came there a voice from heaven saying, I have both glorified it and will glorify it again. Glorify it again. And, throughout the world, people are starting to, snap out of it and realize the name is Yahweh and it's not Yehovah. It's not Yahuwah. It's not Jehovah. It's not Yehovah. When I say Yehovah, I feel weird. I feel that sounds corny as hell, bro. That name is corny as hell. Jehovah, El Señor Dios Jehovah. Mofo, that ain't no goddamn name. The true name is Yahweh. Oh my goddamn! You feel power when you say Yahweh or Yahweh Shai. You look at the what's it called? Encouraging videos from the Akim, like the channel Master Zakban Yamyam 144, and you look at the videos. At the end of the videos, you always hear Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahweh Shai, Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh. Man, you hear that? God damn, you feel that power, Every time after the prologue, the Sirach talks about how things translate into another tongue with the same force in them. What's they call that's true, it loses power. But when you say it in its original tongue, which is the Hebrew, the Lashon Kodash, you feel that power, bud. You feel that power, saying Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, man, always encouraging. I got scared saying that, And you gotta take that name seriously, what's it called? There have been accounts of the Akim, what's it called, where they just been saying that name carelessly, and things have happened, which they repented from, right? So, hey, you don't want to lose that name. Hell, I don't want to lose that name, That's a terrible fate, that's a terrible consequence. So, yeah, I take that name seriously, man. That's one thing I freaking fear, I could forget any word. I could forget any words in my dictionary, my mental dictionary. I don't give a damn. So long as it's not Yahweh or Yahweh Shai. If you lose that, you're cut. I'm cut. And so the Lord, the Lord's been glorifying his name through whom? His servants, the prophets, right? Starting out with the other apostle, the Hor, from Great Millstone. And, those men on down, right? The bishops, the pastors, what's it called? The priests, right? All those prophets, man. All those great men of the Lord, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. It's gotten to the point where even the heathen know the name. Even the heathen know the name. You had a Filipino, Jake. He holds an inward church, which, scriptures go against that, Acts the 7th chapter. Yeah, because it was a temporary thing. Acts the 7th chapter, yeah, Stephen talk about how the Lord does not dwell in temples built by man. But, he does that. And years ago, the Akim, right, at Great Millstone, they did lessons on this Jake. Right, there's really the power of how the Lord is able to, what's it called, show his name, eschew his name. Is that the proper term, eschew? Throughout the four corners of the earth. How much of that term, eschew? Eschew. Come on. This always happens. Goddamn internet, man. This internet is dookie. The one I have, at least. This internet is always sending me. Okay. No, not eschew, Salaki. Not eschew. That's a terrible term. The Lord's always showing. What's it called? See, I confuse eschew with show with the E, SHEW, as you read in the scriptures. Then he was showing. The Lord be showing his name through the four corners. What's it called? And this Filipino Jake. His camera is oriented towards the screen, right? The screen, not the Promethean board. It's like I forget what you call it, but if I'm saying he uses a projector. Well, anyway, the screen shows Yahweh Shai's names. They show the true names. I'm going to show you how the Lord be glorifying his name. What's it called? I'm literally the only Israelite in Ventura County, which is northwest of LA, right? It borders LA to the west, the LA County to the west. Ventura County with Oxnard, Ventura, Camarillo, Thousand Oaks, Malibu, and Simi Valley and Santa Paula, and perhaps more, I forget. Well, in that entire county, I have been the only Israelite with this truth for years now. And I often think about how, what's it called? The Lord is able to manifest his name, through me in this entire county. Because that goes to show you how the Lord has been showing his name, and he's been glorifying his name. People, hear that name. What? Yahweh Shai? Well, those are interesting names. Yeah, they are interesting. Interesting, all right. What's it called? According to Merriam-Webster, interesting is an adjective defined as something that holds attention or arouses curiosity. It should incite all that. It should incite attention, desire, curiosity. Right? Fascination, right? Amazement. It should incite all that. Right? And it is. So the Most High is making himself known that he is, he is the Most High God, and he's always been, so, they know ain't no secrets of the universe bull crap, we snorting some freaking cocaine and whatever the hell you think, the secrets, you don't know jack. Alright, this ain't no atheist bull crap, this is legit, this is freaking real, Yahweh Shai is real. Alright, as it is written in 2 Ezra, the 15th chapter, verse 2, right, the things that are there, for they are faithful, and they are true. And as it is written, fear not those that fear not the incredulity, right? Incredulous for. Actually, I'm gonna pull it out. I don't want to butcher it. Okay, verse 3 right here. Fear not the imaginations against thee. Let not the incredulity of them that trouble thee that speak against thee. For all the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness. And talking about the book of Proverbs, the 13th chapter, verse 13. Who shall despise of the word, the same shall be destroyed. So, at the end of the day, we really don't care if you don't believe. What's it called? If you don't believe, you get smoked. That's just point blank period right there. But if you believe, hey, that's good. Lord willing, you be the elect. Lord willing, I'm gonna be elect, dude. I digress. Verse 3. Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, right? Then shalt thou well understand that the Most High spake of those. And you've been seeing sedition, right? Protests, riots, and we also a lot. Jake, what's it called in these recent years, dude? Right, Jake. Or at least in Babylon. But you also got protests and riots all over the place, all over the country, man. An example was Iran, going a few months back. Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquake, you check what's it called on the internet. There's like earthquakes happening all over the place. Hell, earthquakes now. Let's see what the internet says. Latest earthquakes, the USGS earthquake.gov website. Okay. Today's the 20th of May. Well, guess what? You had God damn, that's a lot. Damn, that's a lot of that's a lot of earthquakes, man. You had an earthquake, a 2.5 magnitude earthquake in Bahala, Hawaii, a 3.7 magnitude on Charlotte Amalie of the U.S. Virgin Islands, 4.1 magnitude on ESC of Shima, Japan, or ESC. That's a direction abbreviation. No, in Shima, Japan, just Shima, Japan. Okay, 2.7 magnitude in Toyota, Texas, 2.8 in Nalihu, Hawaii, Hilahe, Utah, Tuvalu, Indonesia, Sandwich Islands region, Magas Arriba, Puerto Rico, Silver Springs, Nevada, Chase, Alaska, Nikolayevsk, Alaska, Esperanza, Puerto Rico, Stroud, Oklahoma, Southern East Pacific Rise, Nevada, 6.6 in Southern East Pacific Rise. And that's all today. There's more. The list goes on. Right? The list goes on. So yeah, earthquakes popping all left and right, bro. Damn. So, therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and upwards of the people in the world, which, we've been seeing that for a while now. And then shalt thou well understand that the Most High Yahweh spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning. And that reminds me of Isaiah the 46th chapter, really. Verse 10, which reads, declaring the end from the beginning, information types of things that are not yet done, saying my counsel shall stand and I will do it my pleasure. And he does that through servants of the prophets, right? The prophesy, as I say before, to speak before, speak on things before they ever come to pass. Therefore, it's a prediction, right? And he'd be doing that through his men, right? What's it called? The sanctified ones, anointed ones. It was James 1 if I was Jeremiah 1 if I was made the mention how I have sanctified thee and ordained to be a prophet, right? And Jeremiah, prophesied about things that ain't even happened in his lifetime yet. Hell, he kept on cycling out, lifetime after lifetime. Up to this point, whether it be in the spirit realm right now or on this side right now, what's it called? He's been, going back to when he was Jeremiah himself. He prophesied about things that ain't come to happen, but which are only coming to pass right now or soon. And I remember the other episode the car was going to how a prophecy could play out within a day, a week, a month, 1,000 years from now. If not more, it's been over 1,000 years, Right, what's it called? The things he spoke about which haven't come to pass yet, but soon they will. Right, like Jeremiah, 51, going into Babylon getting destroyed in verse 1, right? Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, I will raise up against Babylon and against them that dwell in the midst of them that rise up against me, a destroying one. That's talking about the, mushroom clouds, and then the destroying one that comes out of it after getting blown up by the ICBMs. That ain't gonna happen yet. The only ICBMs which have, hit a country was Japan. I mean, sure, you can argue, what's it called, going back to the Manhattan Project, Esau dropped some atomic bombs on American soil, so you can refer to America being the first country, but really the first target country when it comes to war, opposition, Japan, with Nagasaki and Hiroshima, back in World War II in the 40s. Right, but Babylon ain't talking about Japan, it's talking about America. Babylon the Great, here it is, right? And this place is going to be pelted down, and that's prophecy. So yeah, going back to Isaiah the 46th verse 10, declaring the end from the beginning. So going back to the second, this is the 9th chapter. Verse 5, for like as all that is made in the world hath a beginning and an end, and the end is what? Manifest. You heard that? And the end is manifest. Even so, the times also the highest have planned beginnings and wonder and powerful works and endings and perfect endings and effects and signs. And everyone that shall be saved and shall be able to escape by his works and by faith whereby ye have believed shall be preserved from the said perils and shall see my salvation in my land and within my borders, for I have sanctified them for me from the beginning. And you can read so on. But the last verses are going to the elect remnant, which, show you their faith by their works, which is something James, emphasized. And one thing we emphasize too, because the laws ain't done away with yet. People are lazy and they're about excuses, so they don't really keep the law because they suck, and they're gonna show that they suck by getting smoked in the thermonuclear fire. That's why you read verse 9 on down. It talks about that. The same must know after death by pain. But I digress. Lord wills and edifying. Listen to the next one I do. Say shalom.